You're on.
Oh, very
You're
good.
live. Go.
Hello, welcome to When Learning is Trauma. I am Lois Letchford, author of the book Reversed, a memoir, and literacy problem solver. Lisa, over to you.
Hello, I'm Lisa McCarty. I work with Lois on this project, and I am thrilled to be here with our guest. So let's get to it, Lois.
And our guest today is Leah. Leah turned 16 in April, and she says when she was 9, she wrote a book about being diagnosed with dyslexia because she didn't want other kids to feel like she did in school. She said, I'm still angry that nothing really changes, and I want to make sure kids' voices are heard because we count. Kids who don't read become adults who don't read. Welcome, Leah.
Hi.
And Leah, and with Leah is her mother, Ayelet.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Hi.
So, Leah, could you begin by just giving us a summary of your school years?
So, school for me, at first, it was very hard. It wasn't something very easy for me. I would come home crying every single day because school just always stressed me out. And it was just it was never anything good. And then I went to school in Brooklyn, which was amazing. That really got my confidence up. No one in my public school none of the teachers were supporting me. They would tell me to figure it out myself. They would tell me not to do my work and just sit there. They would pass me just to get along with what I was doing. In my school in Brooklyn, they helped me out so much that got my confidence up. And then the school that I go to now, it's amazing. The way they teach and focus on every student is the best, and it makes learning a lot easier for me and my friends.
That is fantastic. Do you remember those early years?
Yes.
What are your memories?
There's no good memories. When I first started using audiobooks with Learning Ally, I told one of my teachers I was excited I could read, and they were like, oh, but you can't do that in school. So when we would do our reading circles, my teacher would say in front of all of the kids in 4th grade, they said, oh, Leah, you don't have to read because you can't. And in front of everybody, and I was embarrassed.
Yeah.
And everyone was just like, oh my God, she's in 4th grade, she can't read.
Yeah.
Someone told me I don't need to write on a project because I write like a kindergartner. Just none of the memories were good.
Yeah.
I came home crying one day because of a test, and I asked one of my teachers for help, and they said, just don't do the test. They just told me not to do it. And when I had to get my papers enlarged because of my vision problems and the dyslexia, it was hard to read the small text. So we had papers that said I needed to get my text enlarged. They showed me how to do it, and I had to do it on my own. And I was like 8 or 9, having to walk across the school and get my papers enlarged for myself, and I had to do that. They showed me once, and I just had to figure it out.
Wow. You know, the resilience is what comes to my mind. The resilience to need to even survive those years in school.
Yeah, and that was the day that she came home and said, don't make me go back there. My teacher said I don't count. And I said, your teachers really said you don't count? And she's like, yes, they said that.
Yeah, my teachers were like, oh, you don't count, your grades don't count, just don't do it.
Right, so they said to her, don't worry about the work, don't do it, it doesn't count anyway. But to her, she interpreted that as the same thing as saying, you don't count.
Correct.
Like,
Yes.
we're not helping you because
Yes.
you don't count.
Yes.
Type of thing.
Yes.
And what grade was that?
Fourth.
That was in fourth grade.
Fourth grade.
Yeah.
So what year were you diagnosed, or how old were you when you were diagnosed?
I was 9 years old.
In the 3rd grade or 4th grade?
Fourth grade.
4th grade.
Yeah.
What difference did that make?
And was that through school?
No, I got diagnosed not through my school. My school put up a very hard time with us when we told them I was dyslexic. When I got tested, it kind of helped me because I knew that I'm not stupid and there's not something wrong with me.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. My son's your same age. We talked a little before. But he was in the 8th grade when he asked me what dyslexia was. And when I told him, he asked me if he was dyslexic, and I was afraid to label him. And then I really looked back, I wish that I had sooner, but when I told him he was dyslexic, Leah, he said, well, that explains it.
Yeah.
And his self-confidence started to come up from that point, but he still had trouble in school explaining that to the teachers.
Yeah.
So that's what you're saying in your school experience. It sounds like the teachers
With Frozen.
didn't understand that type of learner.
I don't think so. I don't think it was their fault. Like, I don't fault them. I don't hold any kind of, animosity. But at the same time, I think there was contribution to making her feel unaccepted. And that hurts. That hurts as a kid, and it hurts as a parent.
I don't know if you've listened to any of our prior broadcasts, but we talked to Martin Bloodfield from the UK. And I mean, he's older now, and school was torture for him. And the words that he said to us was that, why is it acceptable for teachers to put down another child? And then he said, what are the other children learning in that classroom under that scenario? And I had never thought about it like that, but that's what we live with. It's okay to ostracize. It's okay to do those things to the child that's different. I mean, that was a real eye-opener to me, that he said that, and we're still doing it today, and that's a problem. So you were, Leah, you were in a public elementary school, and then what happened?
So after 4th grade, I left, and I didn't graduate with my friends from that school. And in 5th grade, I went to school in Brooklyn, which helped a lot, and that school ended in 6th grade. So I had 2 years in that school, and that school had like 24 kids in it. It was very small. Everything was basically one-on-one, and my Orton Gillingham teacher, she's amazing. She helped me read and just figure out how to do everything that I couldn't do before.
And that was a private school for dyslexic students?
Yes.
Yeah, and it worked. I mean, I think that's the important thing to me, is that it worked. You went there and it worked, and you said, wow.
Yes.
Everyone can breathe, mother and family as well.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is, the principal of the school was what? I remember she came home, she spent the day there to see, if we were a good fit.
Yeah.
And so, do you remember what you said when
I
you came
home and I was like, everyone's dyslexic, even the teachers. Like, all of the teachers were dyslexic, the helpers were dyslexic, all of the students were dyslexic.
And
the principal let us call her by her first name.
Yeah. She's like, Ma, guess what? Even the principal's dyslexic, and everyone's dyslexic. And she told me that she started the school because her son was dyslexic.
Wow.
And completely, totally private, does not want anybody to tell her how to run the school because she knows what works.
Yeah.
Oh.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where we got, renegade from.
Yeah.
And that's where you come back and say, whoo, relief for everyone, isn't it? And learning changes.
Yes.
So tell us about the positive memories you have from that school.
I made like amazing friends. I still talk to some of them. And like they're all everyone.
They had social emotional learning, which seems to be like a huge thing now. But the thing that I find is that they really understand their population. They really understand why the students that are there were so like anti-school, angry.
Like a bunch of students from there would act out, like have these, even including me, like we like just break down in tears and just not know how to act because we felt so accepted, and it felt like we were in a world where no one understands us. But when we got to that place, it was like this, like it can't be real.
So you didn't trust that, you mean, or you were just overcome with emotion because you were finally in a spot that understood you or got you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's interesting to me that the first thing that comes out of your mouth when you talk about this are the friendships and the emotional engagement. We're not talking about the learning in the classroom or the reading, but the feeling safe before anything else happens. That to me is fascinating, because that's exactly what the research says. You've got to have that safety and feeling of acceptance before any learning can happen.
Yeah.
And that's what you remember.
Yes. And I remember, she might not remember this, I don't know, but I don't think we've discussed this before ever, but I remember she would refuse to read. 3rd grade, 4th grade, you know, when you read in class, or they would do group work, that would never be her. She, at the time, was wearing contacts, and when I asked her or her teachers, you know, where did you hear Leah? Like, Leah, where were you when you were doing X, Y, and Z? And she's like, oh, I just say my contact fell out. And she would, you know, leave the room, and she'd come back like minutes later.
Yeah, when it came to my turn to read, I'd be like, oh, my stomach hurts. Like, oh my God, my contact is gonna fall out, and I would go into the bathroom and wait.
Yeah, but then in the dyslexia school, she would read. She was like, yeah, we all make the same mistake, so we all laugh and it's okay.
Yeah.
So like the difference in confidence was really interesting in a good way.
And it's acceptable then to make mistakes.
Yes.
You know, and that's... Sorry?
She felt comfortable.
Yeah. And, you know, we learn a lot by making mistakes. So we shouldn't be putting people down for making mistakes anywhere.
Right. Never, ever. I think it's meant to be motivational. When people do that, I think they think that they're being motivating, but it does the opposite.
That's exactly right. It just shuts you down. Yeah, I remember that really well. So I'm really pleased. Do you have any other positive memories from school?
The school I'm going to right now, I have, it's still very small, like 180 kids, and I have a small clique from there, and we all still keep in touch. We're all dyslexic, we all have the same issues, and we all understand each other.
Yeah.
And it's not even if we're talking about that, we'll hang out outside of school, and everyone's just like super amazing.
Yeah. And if they can't do it one way, they help them find another way to do it.
Yeah.
Do you all have similar strengths, do you find?
Yeah. Like, and when we're all together, me and one of my friends, Joesa, we've been in the same math class for years, and when one of us are having a problem, we always know how to kind of work through that together. And my teachers, they're all super nice. Like, I'm friends with my teachers. Like, if I needed to talk about something with them, like not school related, they'd be all ears and help me out and listen. Yeah. And they're all super fun and understand.
Yeah, and accessible too.
Yeah.
If there's ever a question, there's always a response. Everybody's really wonderful.
Yeah.
We have 2 questions already. And the first one is not so much of a question, but he says, a thought. Is there much of a difference in the overall mental health of students there? I wonder if there means school.
Yes. So I used to come home crying, throwing my books on the table, never doing my homework. My mom would have to reteach what they taught me in school. And now I just come home, do my homework. I have honor roll in a bunch of classes, most of my classes. And I just got more honor roll today.
Congratulations.
I'm doing amazing with my work than I used to do, and I'm more independent. I'm not depending on my mom to help me or anything like that. If I need help, I'll ask, but I'm more independent, and I could do a lot more by myself than I could have years ago.
Yeah.
And she's doing the work that her peers are doing.
Ah, that's huge, isn't it?
Yeah. It's...
Yeah. It's huge to say, I can do this work.
Yes.
Yeah. And Chris Lashwa asks, what is your greatest memory from school? And Jay Afar says, congratulations. I think that's for all your achievements today.
Thank you.
So what's your greatest memory from school?
So my school right now, it has a lower school, which is like middle school, and I'm in the high school. So in the lower school, they had assemblies, and
they were kid-run, by the way.
Yes, these assemblies were kid-run. The announcers were students, and they let the students did all of the work. But teachers helped, but it was all students. And my friends and I were very close with our science teacher, Dan the Science Man. That's what he called himself too. And we got permission from our guidance counselor to prank him. So we kind of had prank wars going back and forth. So he banned glitter from his room. So our guidance counselor was there, so we had permission from the principal to do this, and we put glitter all over his room. And we were his first period that day, so we helped him clean it up. It was us. So at the assembly, we made a video and showed it, saying it was us. We pranked you. And then they got it, and the teacher got us back by putting a bunch of random stuff in our lockers. And when we opened it, the stuff came flying out with my friends. I have one of the things that was in our locker, as a little keepsake.
Oh, how fun. Again, it's the social emotional connection that you're remembering.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how you cleaned up the glitter. That's not easy.
It was not easy.
Was he banning it for a particular reason?
So the year before, we were doing science projects, and we used glitter on our signs, and it got all over his room, and he was not happy. Everyone helped him clean it up, but obviously cleaning up glitter is not easy. So.
That's good. What would you like listeners to know about dyslexia and learning?
So learning with dyslexia isn't like regular learning. We have to have a specific way of learning it. It's not just letters are backwards or moving or numbers. your brain and you can't comprehend everything that's coming off the paper or everything that you're hearing. And with Orton Gillingham, it helps you sound out like every single letter in every combination of letters, and that just helps you read the word and read books and actually read and comprehend things.
Which is the important part.
Yes.
Yeah, you made an interesting analogy, and about it's overwhelming, isn't it? You just, if the language comes in and you go, what was that? Stop.
Yeah. Very overwhelming.
Where do I start? And for me who's dyslexic, you pick up a little bit and grab at something, anything, and it's always wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have lots of personal jokes about things like that.
We have a lot of personal jokes in our house. Our kids tend to make up words that are actually very creative. I think they should be in the dictionary. So, yeah.
So what advice do you have for children who are currently struggling with reading in school?
Always ask for help. Never be scared to speak up, no matter who you're asking, if it's a friend, teacher, parent.
Wow, that's incredible. That's
Leah,
number
can I
one.
ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
So in your former school, would you have been able to do that, do you think? Or
So I would always ask for help, and when they were like, no, just don't do it, I would tell my mom, and my mom and I would play out different scenarios.
oh, good.
So
That's
I
good.
would come up with things to say.
Yeah.
So she would pretend to be the teacher, and I would be me, and
We would role play.
yeah, we
Yes.
would role play things out. Like, she would say, I would ask her, like, oh, can you help me read this? And she would be like, no. And I would say,
No, you have to figure it out, or
Yeah.
I would just be like, well, I need to read to be successful. Like,
Well, that's great advice because so many kids are not in an atmosphere where they're all learning the same.
yeah.
So I think that's terrific. That's really great advice.
I
Yeah.
think
People
it's
to role
phenomenal.
play.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's the practice and preparation so that you have the words, access to the words when you get to that situation that is going to be stressful.
right.
Interesting. That's really
Yeah.
great.
The best one was, I really need you to read this to me.
Yes,
Yeah.
you
That
said
was
that's
the
what
tough
you
one.
said to the teacher. I really need
Yeah,
you to
yeah.
read this to me. Yeah,
Like, I wouldn't even ask, I just tell them.
in
Yeah.
the end.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah,
what
and I
age were
told her-
you? What age were you when you were able to do that?
I think that was 4th grade, but it was a lot of practice. She was afraid of getting in trouble or
Yes.
being rude to
Yes.
her teachers. So I told her to stop asking them for help at some point, and I said, just say what you need,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, hi, I need you to read this to me, please.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that. You're not being rude. You're not asking, you're saying what you need.
Yes.
And
Which
if
is
they don't know, you're telling them.
yes, which is fantastic. Now, you wrote the book. Tell us about the book.
Yes, so Dyslexic Renegade, I wrote it because when I was first diagnosed, I felt really alone because I didn't know anyone else with dyslexia. So I felt very alone and like no one understood what I was going through. So my mom explained to me that I wasn't alone. I wasn't the only person going through this, child or adult. So I wrote the book to help people know that they're not alone, that other people are struggling with you, and other people are always here to help.
Do you have the book with you? Can we see it?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Would you like to read a little bit of it, or your mother, someone? Give us an introduction.
Sure.
A little bit.
Okay. Okay. So, all right. So Leah writes, I used to like school, but then I started to not do so well in school. I tried really hard and I did all my homework and classwork.
I drew all of these pictures when I was young, by the way.
I was failing all my tests. I didn't like getting them back because everyone did better than me. People were telling me that I'm really smart and bright, but I did not feel so smart and bright. I hated bringing home my failing tests because it showed I really was not smart and bright.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the pictures.
Thank you.
Yeah, I cried. I couldn't understand why I was failing. That made me feel upset and like I couldn't do anything right. Have you ever felt like this? I know some people feel like this, but I feel like this all the time.
Yeah.
My parents went to my school and talked to my teachers, and my teacher said Leah's holding her own. I wasn't sure what that meant. My parents explained that it meant I was doing okay.
That's interesting, you know, that even at a young age, you know there's a gap. You're aware there's a gap between you and everyone else, and it's really obvious to you. I can't do it.
Yeah, she was well aware.
Yeah, yeah. Now, before we started this conversation, we chat earlier so that we get all the technology working. We're talking about the trauma that happens, not only for Leah, but for the whole family.
Yes.
And so we're going to have Yella back on the show to talk about the family dynamics of the trauma, because you're giving your story. But how were you impacted in a short way so that we can have an introduction to the next chapter? How were you impacted?
So I think we all felt like we were hit by a truck. I naively thought that, oh, we have a diagnosis, it's dyslexia. Okay, we could take care of it, right? And so we went to the school and we gave them the neuropsych evaluation, which was a big chunk financially that we weren't necessarily prepared for. And the school basically said, oh, dyslexia, it's not a thing. And it took some time to get an IEP. The first IEP meeting that we had for her, I thought, was a complete disaster. And it kind of sent us all into this tailspin, because the expectation was that a school should help a child, right? Forget about me, forget about everyone in my family, but the child, right? And I think they thought that they were helping, right? They offered at the IEP meeting speech therapy, OT, and I said, but she doesn't need that.
Yeah.
What about Orton Gillingham?
And what grade level was this?
So she was in 4th grade at
Right.
the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I said Orton Gillingham, and they said we don't have the money
To
to
do that.
put towards that. So I felt very conflicted, because there was money for other things, other causes, other, and that's not to say that's not important either.
Yeah.
But where there's a will, there's a way. And, I said, I'm sure she's not the only dyslexic child in the school. But
And
of
they-
course she was.
And they said, of course she is.
Yeah, there was, Anyway, so at this point I was kind of halfway through the OG training, and I had asked the school about perhaps getting her someone to work with her, even if it's me. But they got her a lovely teacher to work with her after school. And she did. And I had asked her, also very naively, like, oh, so you did the training too? Like, where did you do it? Like, I was excited, someone else. Because, like her, I didn't really know many people who were going through the same thing, right? So I had asked her, like, oh, you know about OG? Like, cool, let's talk. But she did a 1-week training. And that made me feel a little like, wait, you did a 1-week training, it's taking me over a year to do mine. Like, where are you doing this that you were able to, like, really bang it out? But it was like a 1-week thing, and she got certified. And then I became aware that it was like a teacher workshop.
Yeah.
And I got her a tutor, an OG tutor. who I found out a couple of weeks after they started to work with her that they had taken the same course as her.
And that's
right?
it.
But I said nothing to her. She kept working with that teacher. And one day she comes home and she's like, this isn't working. I don't want to do this anymore. And I said to her, why? What's going on? And I was keeping track of the things that they were doing, and it didn't really add up to like what OG is about. And she goes, it's Orton Fakingham. I'm not doing it anymore. Like that. So I said, okay, guess what, kid? We got you a lawyer. We got you a lawyer, and we're going to help get you to where you need to be. And she said, oh my God, are my teachers going to get in trouble? And, you know, all this stuff. And I said, no, doesn't work like that. We got you a lawyer because there's things that you need.
Yeah.
And it's just not happening where you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I think she felt a sense of relief.
Yeah. That you had. How did you feel, Leah? Because you can tell us. You're sitting here.
I did feel very relieved knowing there was a way that I could get help.
Because you obviously believed in yourself that you could do things.
Yes.
Where did that belief come from?
That I knew there were other people out there, like a bunch of famous people out there who have dyslexia, and it wasn't just
you.
It wasn't just me.
Who had told you that? Was that coming from the family?
Yeah, it was coming from my mom and my whole family.
Yeah. So it's really important to have role models to know that we're not alone.
Yes.
I totally agree with you on that, because I think we do feel when we're struggling as parents as well, that we're stuck with children and what is the future. And when someone else has been there, you go.
Yeah.
Did you have a particular role model who was important?
I don't think I did.
You talked about Miss Ruth a lot.
She was the principal of my first dyslexic school.
Yeah. Ah, so she became your role model type thing.
Yeah. Yeah, she did.
And I can do it. Yeah. I remember doing that with one of my sons, and having the role model, and it just transformed both our lives in that way, having someone else. Now, do you still read a lot? Or do you still read a lot? Do you read a lot? And if so, how?
So I usually am reading something, but I'm not right now. But when I do read, I'm using audiobooks.
It's the best.
Yeah.
I see audiobooks as like a stepping stone. And it just allows you to take in all the information that you need at the rate of your peers, and you can enter the conversation, and you can enjoy the reading and listening again and again and again. Audiobooks changed my life too. So, what's your favourite book then?
So I've read all of the Twilight books.
I haven't.
Like every single one. They're amazing, and I watched all the movies like 5 times. And Winn-Dixie was definitely up there.
It's because of Winn-Dixie? Is that the name of it?
It's just called Winn-Dixie.
Oh, Winn-Dixie.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I remember that one. That was a good one. Yeah. So we have another question. Speaking of audiobooks, do you have any plans to have an audio version of your book? Tell us about it, Leah.
So I already do have an audio version of my book with Learning Ally. They invited us to come out with them and for me to use my voice for the book. So if you go on Learning Ally and search up the book with my name, it will come up and it'll be my voice when you listen to it.
We also will have a description, have the link in the description so that it will be easy to access. Lisa, what were you going to say?
No, I'm just in all of this. I think it's so important that you are helping the other kids that are in classrooms. When you were in your former school, could you identify maybe there were other people like you?
I mean, there probably were, and there probably still are, and they're probably struggling, but I really think I was focusing on myself a
Sure.
lot.
Yeah.
Because I was hardly passing.
Yeah. And you mentioned you felt alone, so yeah, I think it's a great that you have this voice for others. And your mom helping so much with this too. When I got into this, we'll call it a fight, I was struck by how long this had been going on when I started to research it. So, and I felt isolated at first too. I'm sure mom did as well.
Yes.
But I think it's important for, the adults to talk about this, but to really hear from the kids is so great.
Yeah.
To hear your experience and the fact that you're helping other kids. Did you donate a book to your school?
So, my old school, my public elementary school, that refused to help me, we donated a book to their library. So they have a copy of my book in their library.
Good.
Very good.
Good.
Very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
And there's obviously one in the school that you loved?
Yes.
Yeah, yes. So I think it's important for schools, libraries and elementary schools to have a copy of your book, and for teachers to read it to them, to children as well. I mean, that's, so we'll push librarians, if you're listening, grab a copy of the book, read it to the children, let other children know that they are not alone and that there are ways around any problems that we have. Is there anything else you'd like to finish up with, Leah?
I don't think I have anything else to say.
I'm really delighted you've come and talked to us. From what I've got from you today is what's most important is that children go to school and at least they feel happy and safe.
Yeah.
And that doesn't come through when you're failing in school.
No.
So there's a lot of work still to be done to engage children so that we can get rid of those traumatic feelings that we just put them on, that they are gaining from being in the classrooms. And that's really the last thing we want. Lisa, have you got anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, that I'm going to go get a copy of that book for sure. And start passing it out to libraries as well.
Oh, thank you.
So, yeah, I'm excited to read that. I was really, it's great talking to you.
Yes.
Thank you for having both of us.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, it's wonderful to have the teenagers on and sharing your story now and not 10 years' time.
Yeah.
That it's a much better journey. I have to thank my son and his friend, for Isaac and Chris, for their tremendous technical support, because without their technical expertise, this show would not happen. So, listeners, how can listeners find you? Leah.
So I have a Facebook page called Dyslexic Renegade. I also have a Twitter page, which is Dyslexic Renegade, and an Instagram, which is Dyslexic Renegade.
So we will make sure that we subscribe to your channels and to your Twitter and Facebook page, and read all your content and then share it. Anything else we have to do for you? And buy the book and share it with friends and family. Buy a book for you and one for a friend.
That works.
The description the links will be in our description. Lisa, what else? They are in our description. Got to get it right. Lisa, where can listeners find you?
Well, I am on Facebook, and LinkedIn, and here on Monday afternoons with Lois.
And we're here for 8 weeks. We have other guests coming, some adults, some are experts, some are children and fellow students. So join us, and please hit the like and subscribe buttons and hit the bell for notifications and upload to my channel. I get it wrong from my son and he tells me. Where children can find, I read poetry and read books to children as well. And please share the channel with friends and family and with all dyslexics who benefit from hearing our stories, our books and our poems. We need to know that we are not alone. Find me on Twitter, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Instagram and on YouTube. And my website is loisletchford.com. I'm the author of Reversed a Memoir, and I tell the story of my child who pushed past his failure to graduate with a PhD. He outran his label. Please join us next week as we talk to Tricia Cook, who has an interest and focus on alternative and holistic education. So she's an adult, she's a teacher, she's a tutor. It'll be great fun. And thank you again for joining us. And we will stay in touch because we will, a Yellett will join us and talk of the trauma, not only to the child, but to the family, and how the family is impacted by a dyslexic or failure to have a dyslexic diagnosis. So thank you very much. Thank you for all.
Thank